It's Rob and Sandra from My Wife the Dietitian, and this is Nutrition Nuggets.
We're talking all about tomatoes.
And tomatoes.
Well, you say tomato, I say tomato.
I know, it's just one of those quirky things, right?
You know, it's more than just ketchup.
I actually don't call them tomatoes.
No,
just for the record, I think it's like a British thing. I feel very British when I say tomato. It's very proper. But anyway, let's talk about tomatoes.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the nutritional benefits of tomatoes and how they can improve our health by eating them.
By eating them, yeah, that's usually how we.
There's some actually you can put them on your skin, and there's other ways to use them too. But we're not going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
And also how to use them, because there's the plethora of tomato harvest this time of year. We're kind of nearing the end of summer, and there's all the tomatoes growing in the garden and all the different types of tomatoes, the, beefsteak and cherry and bell.
We had friends a couple of years ago trade. I think we had fruit, and they wanted to trade tomatoes. And I just figured we'd get some tomatoes. But they brought this flat with like 16 different types of tomatoes. There was like little ones and big ones and different colors and different flavors. I had no idea there was so many different ways you could do a tomato.
Right, and varieties, you mean?
Well, like and flavors too. It was amazing.
That's great.
I mean, there's a lot to the tomato.
Well, it was first introduced in Europe and in the 16th century, and they were actually small and golden and cherry sized.
Oh, like a little plum almost.
Yeah, like
the little
cherry.
Yellow.
Yeah, the small ones.
The little yellow tomatoes. Cherry.
Yeah, and they were known as golden apples.
Yeah,
because they were tiny and the same texture they are now. And I think in France, the French were convinced that tomatoes were aphrodisiacs, and they called them love apples.
They think everything is an aphrodisiac.
So that red pigment in tomatoes is a strong antioxidant.
Oh, there you go.
Do you remember what it's called?
What the pigment is, what the antioxidant's called? Oh, gosh.
It's actually beneficial for prevention of prostate cancer. There's done lots of studies on this.
Does it start with an L?
Yes.
No. Lycopene.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Like your tomatoes, lycopene, those tomatoes. The carotene, like it's a type of beta carotene, or it's a carotene or carotenoid that causes the tomato to be red. And then that red plant chemical is an antioxidant, and it's a powerful antioxidant. And they're finding that there was one study that showed men who had 10 servings a week of tomato-based products had higher blood levels of lycopene.
Oh, wow.
And you get more lycopene in cooked tomatoes and cooked tomato-based products, so salsa and ketchup and tomato paste and diced tomatoes and like canned tomatoes, because cooking, the processing actually increases the bioavailability of the lycopene.
Like it releases it.
It releases it out of the cells, and it actually helps your body absorb the lycopene.
Oh, interesting.
But it is fat soluble, so you do need to have, like, if you're thinking like bruschetta, for instance, there's a little bit of olive oil, and then that helps your body absorb that lycopene.
Now I am thinking of bruschetta.
I know. Are you hungry?
We got to eat lunch before we do these.
Yeah, that's a delicious way to use it, because we are going to talk about some handy tips and ways to use your tomatoes. But yeah, the tomatoes have lots of vitamin A and vitamin C and K and potassium and folate.
Yeah, wow. And so what you were saying about cooking, it's you're getting more antioxidants through cooking than versus eating it raw?
You get, there's higher levels of lycopene in cooked tomatoes. Okay. And partly because you think of the concentration, really, one tomato versus tomato sauce. How many tomatoes are in a can of tomato sauce?
Yeah, right. Okay.
So the concentration's a lot higher.
True.
And then the cooking and the processing process actually breaks open the cells of the tomato and then releases the lycopene, and then we can absorb it better when we eat it and digest it. And
Perfect.
Absorb it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. So all those nutrients that they're high in, like the vitamin A, C, K, potassium, and folate actually give tomatoes the properties that are helpful for our overall health. Our heart health, it might reduce our heart disease risk and reduce our LDLs, the lousy cholesterol.
Oh, the cholesterol is,
Yeah. And then the prevention, cancer prevention is a big one. And that's like, especially with prostate cancer, they've been doing studies with lycopene.
I think, is that where we discussed this before? Because I remember you talking about tomatoes, like some of the stuff we've discussed. It was probably the cancer episode 5.
Episode 5. Yeah, that was one of the originals, the OG.
Yeah, there was a lot of good information in those couple episode 3, 4, and 5. I think we talked about immunity in 3 and 4, and I learned a lot. I remember I was just astounded at how much Sandra knew. We were pretty new to this, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, I don't talk about all this stuff when we're at home.
No, it's not like,
you know.
Well, you do a bit, but yeah. So there's
25 years of being a dietitian, Rob.
Yeah, I guess you should know some things. So yeah, check those episodes out though, because there is a lot of really good basic information that is useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely, I mean, the lycopene is good for that, like good to help with getting those antioxidants. It's good for eye health too, healthy vision and reducing risk of age-related macular degeneration.
That's a good one then, yeah.
And the bit of vitamin K that's in tomatoes actually is helpful for bone health.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That
okay.
connection of vitamin K and bone health and keeping your bones strong. It's one of the components with a healthy bone.
Yeah, perfect.
And it's an anti-inflammatory food too, the tomato, because of those antioxidants.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And also it helps your skin glow. It's good for your skin health because of that vitamin C that's in tomatoes.
Yeah.
And
that's what most people think of, I think, right, is the vitamin C.
Yeah, probably.
And I guess the lycopene. I mean, that word is familiar to me, so it must have been related to tomatoes that I've learned about in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, lycopene's also in other red pigmented fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
It's also helpful for collagen production, and that helps with your skin health and your wound healing. So if you have a cut or any kind of abrasion or
a boo-boo,
an ulcer or something on your skin, that actually helps with healing, just eating tomato-based products.
Perfect.
And your overall skin appearance. And because of that potassium that I mentioned, that mineral that's in tomatoes, it helps balance the sodium in, so it's good for blood pressure.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. And there is fiber in tomatoes because of that skin on the tomato.
Oh, for sure.
That helps with digestive health and offering some good fiber in our diet. And they're so water heavy, like a fresh tomato, that eating tomatoes is good for satisfying, like just...
It helps with hydration?
Yeah, and weight management. It helps, like if you're eating tomatoes regularly, it's good for weight. Because if you think of, like, for instance, we're going to get into all the different ways of using tomatoes, but if you go to a restaurant and you have a pasta sauce that's tomato based versus a creamy base, the calorie difference is huge, right?
Oh, it's massive.
Yeah. So it's the tomato based products are more recommended on a regular basis to go for those.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing we used to eat, and we still do, tomato on top of peanut butter and a bagel.
I love that with basil and salt and pepper.
Oh yeah.
It's delicious. You're going, what, really? Peanut butter? But really, try it. And then that for me morphed into peanut butter and salsa because I like the spiciness of salsa, and it's just kind of like tomatoes in a jar with all these other yummy things, and it's easy.
Oh,
and that's super delicious.
Yeah, I think it morphed in for me like a little bit of onion, like purple onion and tomato on the peanut butter on a bagel.
Yeah.
Oh, delicious.
You know what else I've noticed is a plus of eating that kind of, we'll call it weird food. Kids don't steal your food. If I made a peanut butter and jam sandwich, I'd turn around and someone would scoop it and it'd be gone. But if it's peanut butter and salsa, No one steals that.
You're funny.
So it's kind of food security in a way.
Yeah, right. For you. The taste combination, though, is just because of that, fresh tomato. Tangy in with the peanut butter that's, sticky and creamy and soft. And, it's that great combination that really pops the flavor.
Yeah. We should have a little like contest on, I don't know, Facebook or Instagram, where people like submit their crazy pictures of crazy food combinations that they like to eat.
Great idea.
See if anyone can beat what we've done. Because I eat some crazy stuff. So we'll challenge you all to send us your crazy food photos.
You're funny. Yeah. Well, with all those tomatoes, people that are harvesting at this time of year, you can use them in dishes. Like you can either, eat them in a salad or in like as fresh tomatoes, or you can can them and preserve them. You can can them whole or diced or crushed, or also you can make homemade salsa. There's
endless. Yeah. I used to work at Pizza Hut, and someone came in one time and ordered, and at the time I thought it was kind of odd because you get used to most pizza topping combinations, but this person ordered tomato and hot pepper, and that was it. I thought, weird. And then one night I decided to make a little pizza that had those toppings on it, and it was amazing because they kind of they don't cancel each other out. They kind of
like accelerate or
well, yeah. I mean, you get the hot pepper, but then the tomato kind of cools the hot pepper, and you get the flavors from both of them. It was a great combination. And then the cheese and the crust and the sauce and all the rest of the pizza bits, but it was so good.
That sounds delicious.
I know. Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
So I learned a lot working there, just different combinations that people had. So that was eye-opening.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like you only need one or two toppings to make a really special taste.
Oh, yeah.
And flavor versus like having an everything on your pizza, because then you just get this huge jumble of flavors. But I mean, that could be good too.
Yeah. Your mouth gets cluttered, as your dad would say.
You're funny. Oh. So yeah, also we always have canned tomatoes
They are a staple. They're so good. I use it for chili, but they're just great. A great addition to sauce. If you're making like just a tomato sauce for pasta, kind of, I usually drain some of the wetness out so that your sauce isn't really soupy, but
I hope you don't throw that away.
Oh, of course not. No.
Good. Because
feed it to the cat.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No, but no, don't throw that away. Just save it, and I can use it in the soups because I use the tomato.
No, I know. It's not like draining a can of beans where you don't want that stuff. It's all the nutrients and stuff, but I just don't want it to be super wet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can, like we talked about the bruschetta. Did we say that?
Yeah, well, sort of. Talked about it. We're making me hungry again.
Yeah, so salsa, bruschetta is a different one. Or you can actually bake bread, like focaccia bread with tomato or sun-dried tomatoes in it. Oh, so good, eh? There's so many different combinations. And sauces like marinara, pasta sauce, pizza sauce, like the toppings for pizza. So roasting tomatoes is nice too. Like in the oven, if you roast them, then they're a different flavor than fresh.
Mm-hmm. Did you say anything about eggs yet?
No.
Yeah, so I like that too with, we'll use salsa, but even tomatoes in the eggs is really kind of nice because often when you're cooking an omelet or scrambled eggs or whatever in the pan there, everything gets dried out except the tomato adds that pop of kind of wetness when you're eating it. So it's just a different...
Like a texture?
Yeah,
flavor.
I guess so. A different experience in your mouth when you add that little bit of wet tomato.
Yeah.
Kind of makes it nice and juicy.
Oh, exactly. And actually that's with stews too. Like if you have tomatoes in stews or curries, using canned tomatoes or fresh tomatoes, and you put them into like a one pot dish, like something that you're making like a stew, in the Instant Pot or in your crock pot. So there's so many different ways to use tomatoes. And I definitely suggest if you do have a bumper crop, you could make salsa or make chutney.
Yeah. Or just like stewed tomatoes, like so that you have them on hand, like that can of what do we call that?
Like
Diced.
Yeah, the diced
Yeah,
tomatoes.
they're just so useful to have. So
Oh yeah, they're so good. Yeah,
it doesn't need to be anything fancy. They're just great to add to whatever you're making.
that's right. Yeah, and you can have tomatoes combined with roasted squash in nice recipes, or even roasted green beans and tomatoes. It's unlimited. It's kind of like that whole like shrimp gumbo and shrimp.
Oh yeah, there's just endless combinations. And then there's the classic toasted tomato sandwich. I mean, you can't beat that. It's just so fresh.
Oh yeah, beefsteak tomato with a bit of mayo on the sandwich. Oh, so good with that like toasted bread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, they're so delicious. A little bit messy, but that's just part of the experience. I love them.
Yeah. So enjoy those tomatoes, and try to eat tomatoes most days if you can. And 10 servings a week of some sort of tomato-based product is good for getting that level of lycopene up, and helpful for prevention of cancer and different diseases.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So what do we have coming up next week? We have a full episode next Monday.
Yeah, we are talking to Dominique about van life and cooking in a van and traveling and eating healthy on the road.
Yeah, that's going to be really a different episode. Dominique's a friend of ours that we met this summer, and she's got a fun life, and she's quite knowledgeable about eating on the road, which we thought would be handy for a lot of people because everybody travels from time to time. So she's got some really good ideas. So that'll be interesting to talk to her and see what she has to say.
All right.
So in the meantime, you can check out our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube. New things coming up there all the time. And if you have questions for us, you can drop us a message at our email, which is mywifetherd@gmail.com. And check out the website. There's lots of fun things on there as well. That's mywifethedietitian.com. And don't forget to rate and review the show. We always appreciate that. So that is it for this week. We will be back on Monday with Dominique.
Thanks, Rob. See you then.
Thanks for joining us today on My Wife the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.